Hello and welcome back to the podcast. So I've got someone with me today who'll be no stranger to social media and describes herself as the most Bridget Jones estate agent in the UK, which we're going to find out more today. Sarah, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Chris. This is quite a treat.
Absolutely. A treat for you and for me as well. So, for
Oh,
those that don't know, share a bit of a background of your journey into estate agency. So, what first attracted you into the world of property?
so I have always had a bit of a fascination. I was the child that instead of watching kids shows, I was watching like property programs, your homes under the hammers, your locations, your grand designs with my parents. And, from the age of 7, I was critiquing people's kitchens as if I could do so much better, right? I'd definitely go with house number 3. That was definitely the best house. That was what I loved doing. And then I was at university doing a photography degree, of all things, and I thought I could just do a bit of part-time viewings. I could do that on a Saturday rather than working in a supermarket, which I've been doing for several years prior to that. That might be a bit more interesting. So I applied for a job at Romans in Wokingham, now part of the LRG group, which it wasn't then because that's how long ago it was. And I was doing weekends there for a couple of years. Then when my degree finished, I thought I could do this full time for a bit before I become the next David Bailey. Um, and I just never left. I spent 9 years there, which was crazy, really, that it just went by like that. So most of my 20s I spent with Romans and I loved it for so many years. And it came to a point where I just thought, I've never really done anything else. I've never worked anywhere else. I then was approached to go and join a startup company. Well, not a startup, but a very small new business. And for a catalogue of reasons, I wasn't the right fit for them. They weren't the right fit for me, and I've made my peace with that ever since. And then an opportunity at Belvoir came up, which is, kind of more similar, I suppose, to the Romans LRG dynamic of being a multi-branch organization, but where it's franchised, it's all individually owned and individually run. So there is a sense of autonomy that comes with that, which is quite nice. And I've been here for the last 18 months or so, which has been delightful.
There we go. I never knew we had so much in common, by the way, because I was planning on doing a photography degree at university as well, and also mugged that off pretty quickly. So look where it's got me. And
Mum
I
said,
know
do, my mum always said, do business instead. That will serve you so much better. And I was like, nah.
I think your mum was on something then. In hindsight, I think she might have known. But we probably know a lot of
Maybe.
people in common with regard to the Roman side of things as well. So
Mm.
everyone that I know that worked at Romans at that sort of period is always like Romans was the best company, it was the best training, it was the best culture, it was amazing sort of thing. Was it like worth the hype back then?
100%. I think that there's still so much of the old values, like the hardcore values that Romans had. The phone must be answered within 2 rings. You stand up and greet everyone as soon as they walk in the door. The clear desk policy, which personally I never subscribed to, but can't win them all. Are values I still hold now. So the sort of the initial training was incredible, and you know, I was a Saturday person. I was taken out on 3, 4 viewings and then said, here's the jailer of keys, off you go for the rest of the diary. And so it really was like a baptism of fire. And doing your Saturdays, you're not there in the week to see what's changing, see what's let, what hasn't let. And I was exclusively doing lettings at this point. So every weekend was like a surprise, and I learned to wing it well, I'd say. And I think you have got to be a bit adaptable is probably the professional word we'd use rather than wing it. Um, to just be able to just go out, be, relatively logical with what your answers to the questions that tenants are asking and landlords are asking, but, picking stuff up as you go at the same time was definitely good fun and a good challenge in those initial years.
I think you nailed it when you said winging it. I think we're all winging it. I think even still in my life, I'm still winging it at nearly 40 years old.
Yeah,
And I presume I'll be winging it again in another 40 years.
I've yeah, I mean, ever since school, my report cards and my one-to-one cards forms have always said no attention to detail, great talker, can talk forever, great people skills, but poor attention span, no attention to detail, and that's always been seen as like a negative. But then if you flip it, actually, on the on that flip side, I can be quite adaptable, I suppose. And yeah,
Yeah,
winging it
absolutely.
has gotten me this far. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Welcome to a state agency. Talk the talk and walk the walk. Absolutely. So talk me
welcome,
through what your
welcome.
role is. So you're a area sales and lettings manager, aren't you, at Belvoir? So talk me through sort of what that involves and sort of the day to day.
I basically do a little bit of everything, which I've been really enjoying actually. So I am the primary lister for the office, so it's my job to find and then list properties for sales and to let. And up until 18 months ago, I had exclusively done lettings. So sales is something, again, I've had to wing it and learn um, without a great deal of tuition, if you like. And, podcasts like this and Simon's podcast, because unfortunately other podcasts do exist, uh, uh, have really helped me to learn those sorts of extra sort of skills that sales is more involved than lettings in many ways. Um, so I also do a lot of marketing, the marketing design, all of the social media. Um, I do a bit of property management, a bit of sales progression, a bit of negotiating, some viewings. Basically, if there's a role doing it, I do a bit of it. And I have a wonderful team around me who do the bulk of those extra bits and are incredible at what they do. And I'm very lucky to have them.
So talk me through then. So how did it end up with you being a regional advocate with the Women in Estate Agency? How did that come into sort of play?
Again, that was a bit of a an imposter syndrome moment. I alluded to sort of that period where it hadn't quite worked out with the other business that I left Romans to go and join, and that was a very low period in my life where my career had been everything. I'd spent 9 years building to something, and I'd left it. I'd left the safety net of my little Romans career to take this jump, and it hadn't quite worked. I kind of crash landed a bit. And I found that the women in that group were just so uplifting and so supportive and always had a solution to the problem. And there is a no stupid question policy in the group. And just by almost having like a virtual hug of people around you, just to sort of put you back up on your feet, I put a post in there saying, look, I'm a bit stuck. I need a new role, PDQ. I've got rent to pay and everything else. This quite hasn't quite worked out, and I just felt this embrace of people saying, "Have you tried this? Have you spoken to this recruiter? Have you considered this? You will be fine. Don't worry. Sometimes the best things happen in these situations." And I have to agree that it was a very good, with hindsight, of course, not in that moment. With hindsight, it was a good moment for me to be able to learn to pick myself back up again, which I've had to do a couple of times again since. And that group has just been so fundamental in changing my mindset in that sort of regard as well. And also being able to pay it forward. So I specifically look out for posts from people who are in that sort of position now and make sure that I pay that experience forward so that, there's people just don't feel alone. It's lovely.
Do you think that estate agency and obviously lettings would fall into this as well is generally a fairly lonely-ish business? Yeah, because obviously you're sort of on the front line every day and you hear no a fair amount of time, just some sort of, doing the job correctly, you should hear no quite a lot. Do you feel that sort of plays into that sort of negative stereotype sort of mindset sometimes? It kind of feels like you're being slightly kicked when you're down, or what's your experience been on that side?
It can be, and people say, like with any sort of job role, you've got to have a thick skin. But I'd argue actually having a thin skin is better because I think you need to stay in touch with your emotive side much more than you need to shield from it. And by having a thick skin, you can deflect. That's not my problem. Oh, they chose another agent because. When actually, if you have a thin skin, you can feel it, and you can have that introspective moment where you look and you think, okay, what actually could I have done better in that moment to secure that business or to get that extra bit of fee out of somebody or to make that deal go better or stop it falling out of bed altogether. So by having introspection, not necessarily a beating up of yourself, which I think there's a big difference between having a moment of introspection and a moment of beating yourself up. You're able to sort of keep steady whilst also making sure that you're continuing to learn as well.
I love that.
And I think you're right when you say that this can be a very lonely business, and certainly as when I first started, I was in a big team of 5 or 6 negotiators. So there was 5 or 6 friendly competitors, but also 5 or 6 equals, all in the same team. And then, as you become then sort of a lister, there's only maybe 1 or 2 of you at that level. Then you become the assistant manager, the manager, and all of a sudden you're up here at this. I hate the expression, but almost like a pyramid sat at the top. And there's almost no one at your level anymore that's like your peer. So by going back to the women in the state agency piece, by again having a group like that means that you just don't feel that loneliness perhaps quite so much as you would have done otherwise.
So outside of the support that obviously women in the estate agency bring to sort of each other, why else do you think that groups like Women in Estate Agency are important for the industry as a whole?
That is an incredible question. And there are so many examples, sadly, of women who have either been overlooked or undermined or, quite frankly, abused in this industry because that people think we're an easy target, or because it was a male dominated industry previously, or for a catalogue of heinous other reasons. So I think, you know, and again, the women in the stage group, it's not about making sure that we have, a voice instead of men or bringing men down a level. It's about making sure we're all raised and all improved, and we all have the capacity to share our own experiences and our own voice, which often isn't the case. And if you look at, you know, I'll use Romans as an example. I've loved working at Romans, but it has its corporate problems. In sales in particular, at the moment, I believe there is only one female sales manager. There are no female listers in sales. And even in lettings, which was always considered um, the girlier side of the business, it was a bit easier, it was a bit girlier. Girls do letting, the macho men do sales. It's, that's just how it felt at the time, certainly when I started. A lot of the property management, the admin, the sales progression side are female. Not so many of the branch front end staff are. And I think that there is absolutely a need to advocate for women to be promoted into those roles and to have the confidence to apply for those roles in the first place. There's a book, and I can't remember the exact statistics. In fact, it is in front of me. I might quickly have a scan through. It's called Why Men Win at Work. In fact, I am going to grab it out of my pile now and show it to you. I've got a pile of books that my phone's propped up against, and this just happens to be in it. Um, Why Men Win at Work. And in this book, there is a statistic to suggest that if a woman reads a job advertisement and they don't meet, say, all 5 of the necessary criteria, then they just won't apply for it. Whereas a man naturally probably would. And I think that that is a cultural thing that's been ingrained probably since childhood for reasons that, a psychologist could probably unpack a lot better than me. But it's about, as I've said, sort of advocating for women to have that confidence and frankly, to men to have the conscious bias to allow, women to have that seat at the table as well, which I think is so easy just to not do because there is that unconscious bias already. So, yeah.
Great. So talk me through your regional events then. So I'm going to ask you a question now, which I've wanted to ask for a while, but I've always thought I'd feel stupid asking it. So instead, I'm going to ask on my own
No,
podcast
no,
in
there's
front
no
of
stupid questions.
well, in front of a few thousand people. Can men attend these events? I know you do the regional events. I think there's one in
Well,
Reading a little while ago. Can like guys come along, or is it like women only? What's the rules there?
so I'm personally in favour of men coming, much like the conference. I think the conference, whilst it's called Women in a State Agency, it is absolutely for everyone. And I think the male attendance last year was about 25% of all the tickets sold, which was so, so, so good. And I think it's due to be higher this year, which is amazing because ideally, I think what the committee and certainly us would like is there to almost be a 50-50 split of men attending. Um, so for me, my regional events, um, I personally am happy for fellows and men to come. Some of the gals, I mean, you have to ask them what they particularly want to do. Some are promoting it purely as a women in business type networking event. Um, for again, I think for women to feel they've got that safe space that they can come uninterrupted and unjudged. But for me personally, I'm happy for anyone to come. Really, like, cool. Would love to see you there. More merrier. Really.
Because I think for me as I'll talk as the token guy on the video call if that's okay. I think
Yeah,
as a
yeah.
guy looking in, I think that I look at that sort of something. Wow, that looks really great. I'd love to come to it. Like I see the stuff that Claire does and Joe does, and I think, oh, I'd love to go to that sort of thing. But I'm like, I don't want to be that guy who turns up and they're like, oh my God, Chris has come. He shouldn't be here, sort of thing. I don't want to be that guy. So okay, so we sort of think maybe is sort of the depends.
I think it varies. So there's things that they do that are exclusively for women. So for example, their female leadership training that they rolled out in the last year, which has been sponsored by Rightmove, which is amazing. That is specifically giving women the skills that they might be lacking to proceed through management, which is sort of what I was alluding to before, and to feel, you know, stronger in their position of management. So that is exclusively for women, so you can't come to that, I'm afraid. But you're very welcome to come to the conference. And, you know, it's people like you, and I'll name a few that just spring to mind, like Christian Byfield, Ben Madden, who are so pro the group. And it's allies like you that will really help make the difference. Because I think it's so easy for men to say, oh, that's not my problem because I've never dismissed a woman off hat or I've never not given a woman a chance. Like, fine, I'm sure you probably haven't in your mind, but I think as to be part of the solution, you need to accept that you're probably unbiasedly part of the problem. And the more allyship and the more awareness that men have around that, I think will only be better.
I think that I'll talk for many men here. Hopefully that's okay, guys. And that is that sometimes it's kind of the unconscious side of things that you don't actually know there is a bias there. So, for example, I had Megan 18 a little while ago on the
Love
podcast,
Megan.
and we talked about TikTok, and she was talking about like the amount of like abuse she'd had on TikTok and the hate and all this sort of stuff. And I was like, I've not had a single bad. I think someone called me a melt once. Someone said, "Oh, what a bunch of melts," and I thought that's not too bad. But as bad as I've
Could be
ever
worse.
had. Where I was like chatting to Megan, and she was like, I've had this," and I was like, I would never know in a million years that that is the sort of stuff that happens online and sort of the messages you get. From a guy's point of view, I'm just like, oh, I post every day and it's cool, and everyone's like, oh, hi Chris, and whatever else it might be, and that's great. So it's kind of, I think some side of it is just being blind to it and just never having experienced that firsthand. You're just kind of just very naive to it.
Yeah, I think it can be really wild, the sort of commentary that you can get. I mean, Megan in particular has just been so good at continuing despite the fact that she has had some hideous messages online. And it usually comes either from other women, which is really sad, or from men. A lot of it will focus not on actually what you're saying or doing, but actually on your appearance as well, which I think is just so it's just insane that, you know, someone could be advocating for whatever it is that, you know, we're doing online, and the comment actually isn't about what they're saying, it's about how that person looks. And again, there's a lot of stuff that I could spend a long time unpacking on that, which I won't, because your listeners will not want to hear all of that. But yeah, it's wild, some of the stuff that you get, and the messages that you get online are just mad. I mean, I've had LinkedIn pictures of people's parts of their bodies before on like LinkedIn Messenger or LinkedIn messaging, whatever it's called. And I just think, why? Why are you sending me that? Like, especially on LinkedIn, like, do you not know that I can now find out where you work and like
Mm.
speak to someone about that? Like, it's just completely wild that there just feels like there's this permission for this abuse to exist online, and I don't get it at all.
I feel like, you know, if I feel like I'm quite a I don't know. I think for me, if someone ever sent something that someone that I like, my sister, for example, if someone sent that picture, I would screenshot that picture and send it to every person they knew in their contacts day in, day out. I would then sign them up through a I've got free kittens, here's my phone number site as well, just because I think it'd be quite funny to do. So yeah, I think if you do that
Yeah,
sort of stuff, you deserve pretty much anything that comes your way.
Yeah, if you want some petty revenge, I find signing them up to spam emails quite fun. You can also have Jehovah's Witnesses sent to their house to knock at their door if you're not into that sort of thing. I know some people are, but just little petty revenges like that. Posting them glitter, I think, also is quite fun.
Oh, well, I like that.
Just an envelope of glitter, great fun.
Very
I've
good.
never done. I've
Honestly, yeah,
definitely
never
not.
done it. Yeah, absolutely right. That was
I've
not an admission of guilt, obviously.
no.
Um, so when you do your regional events, then what
Mhm.
sort of conversations typically come up? So what sort of things are the sort of go-to topics that you normally talk about that women come forward and say, I'm struggling with X or I need some help with Y? What are the things that kind of come
Yeah.
up day in, day out?
It's been a really nice mixed bag of events. I've hosted a few. Some have had one or two attendees, and actually, that's just been a really nice moment just to really get to know somebody. I hosted a Top Golf event last year, and I was driving away to Top Golf, and I had a couple of messages saying, "Look, sorry, I can't make it. Kids have been sick, or work's overrun, or whatever it might be." And look, these things happen. So it just ended up being me and this one other lady who's also called Sarah, and we had the best time, just me and her playing Top Golf. And she was about to start up her own business. And we were talking about her plans and her scheme for what she wanted to do and how she was going to set this up and what her values were, and sort of about her past, how she'd owned an agency before with an ex-husband. And we just got to really, really know each other. And in fact, it was because I became quite good friends with her. She said to me in October last year, "I'm going to do this half marathon in March. Do you want to do it with me?" And I was like, "All right then."
Right.
Um,
You've
which is a
segued
topic
me
I
beautifully. You've
well, I
segued me
thought that might
perfectly for
segue
my next
quite
question.
nicely.
You knew it was coming up because I looked into my social media a while ago and there was the usual sort of boring stuff of, oh, congratulations, you've had a new job and whatever else may be. And there was a video of you running around in your pants. So, which caught me off guard slightly. So tell me all, what is going on?
So, as part of Women Estate Agency, we are determined to raise £50,000 for breast cancer now, which was Sarah Edmondson's charity of choice for this year. And as we all know, Sarah Edmondson, who is the most, or was rather, unfortunately, the most wonderful, caring, kind, warm person, um, CEO of Agents Together, which is an incredible initiative, but also a committee member of Women's Agency, and hosted the previous two conferences so brilliantly and so eloquently. Passed away at the end of last year, and that really sort of shook everyone to their core, really, because she was such an incredible fighter, an incredible advocate for, never suffered with any, what's the word I'm looking for here? She had complete dignity throughout, and it was never, she never sought a sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry, this is tough to talk about. Um, she yeah, she just had complete dignity throughout. So we wanted to raise some money for her charity, and Women's Agents for this big target, £50,000. So I'd signed up to do this half marathon, and I thought I could probably raise a couple of £100. I've never run a half marathon before. I've never run 5K before. Um, so I started doing some couch to 5K at the back end of last year, and then the weather got really crap, and then it started raining, and then it was Christmas. I had a cold. So my training didn't really begin until January, when I thought, oh crap, this side of the new year, it actually is quite soon, in March. So I should probably get outside and get running. So I realized through January that I was going to need a bit more motivation, probably. And I was mindful that everyone is completely broke in January, myself included. So I didn't start fundraising until February. And I'd had some time to think about what I wanted to do. And being a fun social media type person, I knew that I wanted to do something a bit unusual to draw a bit of attention to what I was doing, but ultimately that would still be fun, light-hearted, and pull in a few £100 maybe before I did this run to see me on my way. So I am, as you mentioned at the beginning, an enormous fan of Bridget Jones, and in fact, I am going to see the fourth one at the cinema this evening, which I can't wait for. And there's a scene in the first Bridget Jones where she runs after Mark Darcy in the snow, and she's wearing a pair of zebra print pants, and she finds him out in the street, and they have their their moment, and it's just the one of the best bits of cinema ever. I thoroughly underrated. Shawshank Redemption, as far as I'm concerned, can get in the bin by comparison. Um, so I thought, I'm going to recreate it for fun. I've got a pair of leopard print pants. I've got a tripod. Why can't I just recreate that scene where she, jumps around trying to put her trainers on, runs out the door, um, down the stairs and outside? Like, fine, I'll do that. Why not? Um, so I put it all together, and actually, I decided to do it. I'd finally said, I'm actually just going to do it. And it only took me about an hour and a half to string all this together with some audio I'd nicked off of YouTube of that actual scene. Put it online, thinking, people might think I'm a bit of a dickhead. People might find it a bit funny. I might raise a couple of £100, and that might be quite funny. And then by tomorrow afternoon, LinkedIn will be back to my start new job at this corporation, da 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 da, whatever virtue signaling else you want on LinkedIn. And the response I had honestly blew me away. I was so thrilled because not only was I raising more money than I expected, so I got just over £1,000 in 48 hours for Sarah's charity. I had so many messages of kindness and support from people I wouldn't necessarily have expected it from either. And actually, we talked a moment ago about the hate you can get online. I've had none. And what I did was actually pretty foolish. I put a video of myself running in my pants on LinkedIn. How insane actually is that when you stop and think about it? But, I just thought, I'm just going to raise some money, come hell or high water. What will come, will come. If people want to judge me for that, let them. And I'm in my saying yes here, I'm saying yes to doing that. So fun.
I think really well done you for many things. First of all, it's an amazing cause. So first of all, well done for doing that. I think doing a half marathon is no small feat in any way, shape, or form. And probably the biggest thing is actually running outside in the UK in your pants in the middle of winter. I went for a run last night and it was like hat, gloves, trousers, two pairs of socks, and whatever else. So the fact you went out in your pants, I mean, all bow down sort of thing. You're a braver person than I am.
I mean, I wasn't arrested, so I was conscious that I live in a flat, so I wanted to try and obviously not be caught by my neighbours in case they thought I was setting up some sort of weird OnlyFans, um, or by anyone's ring doorbells outside, because of course everyone's got ring doorbells now. So I didn't necessarily want to be caught, but also at the same time, I had to give myself permission to not care what people thought. And that in itself was quite freeing, quite liberating in many ways, especially if we go back to what I was saying before about, people's appearance being quite heavily criticized online. I'm mindful that I'm not a size 8 or 10. I am a size 16, and I'm okay with that. I've made peace with the way I look, but not everyone will have done, and that's their business, not mine. So I think, people have said that I'm brave for doing it, and, that's very kind. But I think the message absolutely has to be that Sarah was brave, and the women who are facing cancer are brave. I'm perhaps a bit daft and a bit foolish, certainly for attempting to run a half marathon when I've not even run a 5K before. That might be seen as brave, if not stupid. But, the message absolutely for me is I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing it for all of these women who, I might have breast cancer at some point in the future. I have 2 boobs. I need to, make sure they're looked after. So that's why I'm doing it.
I think it's an amazing thing to do. So, if anyone wants to support you, sponsor you, where should they go?
I have a Just Giving page, and I will send you the link.
Perfect. I will put it in the show notes. Bang on
Thank
there so
you.
everyone can find them as well. And so, as a final thing, give us a teaser for the Women in Estate Agency Conference. So I know it's the 6th of March. It's like grained into my head. I was the early bird ticket. I was in there, got them nice and early sort of thing. So I appreciate you are sealed beyond belief and you can't give away too much sort of thing. What sort of things can we expect in the day?
So, the day, if you've come to a conference before, you will know to pack your tissues, as you correctly said earlier. It is going to be an emotional day. There are going to be some incredible stories from incredible people. Right Move have put together something quite special and interactive as well, so that when you're not sat listening to incredible speakers, there is something for you to do. And there are some incredible sponsors that I'm sure will put their best foot forward in terms of their showmanship this year. There is going to be something that I think is personally really important. I've talked a lot about women's advocacy here, and I just want to take a minute to talk about men's advocacy as well, because I think it's super important. So Ben Madden, Christian Byfield, and a couple of other fellows are doing a panel discussion on men's place in society, and having a slot for them to discuss what they think the issues men have, particularly things like mental health and all of that stuff that I know you're a big advocate for. I think is going to be a really, really poignant moment. So I think that's going to be good as well.
I feel like I'm going to upgrade my tissues to just like an in toilet roll pack, just like send
Oh
the
yeah,
whole handbrake
bring it
with me.
bring
Like,
a
guys,
big bumper pack of
yeah,
loo rolls for
just throwing them out like
everybody.
peanuts of a baseball game sort of thing. Who wants a toilet roll sort of thing? There we go. Sarah, thank
100%.
thank you so much for being on today. Thank you for being so transparent, honest about everything. It's absolutely amazing. I really appreciate it. And goes without saying, but an enormous good luck from us on your half marathon. Sounds amazing.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.